Darren Holt had lived on the quiet colony of Lyris 4 for almost 10 years, and during all that time, the place had rarely surprised him. It was a peaceful frontier world where humans worked hard, fixed their own machines, and minded their own business. Life moved slowly there, like an old clock that did not hurry for anyone. Darren liked it that way. After losing his wife 3 years before, he needed a quiet place to raise his daughter, Mira. She was only 8 now, bright and gentle, but the world had taken the shine from her eyes too early. Darren did everything he could to keep her happy, teaching her small repairs, helping her with her reading, taking her on walks across the open plains. But she still carried a quiet sadness. That evening, a cold wind blew through the colony's lower docks. Darren had gone there to pick up metal parts he needed for a repair job. The sun had already set, and most workers had gone home. Only the long shadows of cargo containers remained, stretching like dark fingers across the ground. Mira waited inside the nearby utility shed, warming her hands near the old heater he had fixed last week. She always came with him on jobs since he had no one else to watch her. When Darren stepped out of the workshop with the box of parts, he heard something strange, like a soft whimper. It was faint, almost lost in the wind. But it was there. He paused. The docks were usually empty at this hour. He set down the box and listened carefully. The sound came again, this time followed by a quiet, shaky breath. It sounded like a child. Darren walked between the crates, moving slowly so he wouldn't scare anyone. The sound grew clearer as he neared an abandoned cargo unit that had been sitting unused for months. He pushed the half-broken door open with a small creak. The inside was dark, but his eyes adjusted quickly. Inside the shadowy space, he saw a shape in the corner. 2 shapes, really. A woman with soft silver eyes sat against the wall, her arms wrapped around a small girl who looked exhausted. The woman flinched when she saw him, pulling the child tighter. She looked thin, tired, and frightened. Her skin had a faint, natural shimmer, enough to tell Darren she was not human. Her long hair, slightly messy, had an unusual soft lavender tint that seemed to reflect even the faint light. Darren raised his hand slowly to show he meant no harm. "It's all right," he said in a calm voice. "I'm not going to hurt you." The woman said nothing. She only watched him with guarded eyes, tense like a cornered animal protecting its young. The little girl in her arms shivered, pressing closer to her mother. Darren scanned the space. They had nothing, no blankets, no supplies, not even a source of heat. It was far too cold for anyone to stay here. He kept his voice gentle. "Are you two okay? Do you need help?" The woman's throat moved as she tried to speak, but fear held her still. She shook her head weakly, as if unsure what to say. Her daughter coughed softly, a small, tired sound that struck Darren straight in the chest. Mira, who had peeked in after noticing Darren's long silence, stepped forward. Her small footsteps echoed. The alien woman tensed again, but Mira didn't stop. She wore her favorite yellow jacket, a little worn at the sleeves. When she reached the girl, Mira took off the jacket and wrapped it around the shivering child without saying a word. The alien woman gasped softly, staring at the act with disbelief. Her daughter looked down at the warm jacket, confused but comforted. Darren felt his heart tighten. Mira had always been a quiet child, but her kindness ran deep. He crouched down a little so he wasn't towering over them. "You two look like you've been out here for a long time," he said. "You're cold, hungry. You shouldn't stay here. The authorities might come through, and they're strict about undocumented aliens. They won't let you stay together." The woman's eyes widened with fear when he said that. She finally spoke, her voice soft and tired. "Please, no authorities. They will separate us. My daughter, she is all I have." Her basic standard was a little accented but clear. "I'm not calling anyone," Darren said quickly. "I'm just—" worried. "You can't stay here tonight. Come with me. I have a home. It's warm. You and your daughter can rest there." The woman trembled at the offer. She did not trust him yet. Darren could see that. But she had no better choice. Her daughter leaned against her, weak from exhaustion. "My name is Darren," he said gently. "This is Mira." The alien woman finally whispered, "I am Lethara, and this is Saley." Mira smiled gently at Saley, who peeked back shyly from behind her mother's arm. Darren extended a hand, not to pull her, but simply to let her know the choice was hers. Lethara looked at his hand for a long, uncertain moment. Then she gave a small nod and stood slowly, still holding Saley close. When they stepped outside, the cold wind hit them again. Mira walked next to Saley, carefully helping her keep the jacket tight. Darren carried his toolbox and the box of parts. Lethara followed behind, occasionally staggering. She was clearly weaker than she wanted to show, but she stayed upright for her daughter's sake. As they walked toward Darren's transport cart parked near the loading bay, Lethara hesitated again. Why help us?" she asked quietly. Darren looked at her, his breath visible in the cold air. "Because no one should be freezing in a cargo dock with a child. And because Mira—" He glanced at his daughter, who was gently guiding Saley up into the cart. "She's been lonely. She could use some company her age." Lethara frowned, trying to understand. "You risk trouble for strangers." Darren let out a slow breath. "Sometimes strangers just need someone to care enough to stop and help. That's all." They reached the cart. Saley sat close to Mira, trying to stay warm. Darren wrapped a blanket around both girls. Lethara stood beside the cart, unsure if she should climb in. Darren looked at her kindly. "Please, you're safe with us." Slowly, carefully, Lethara climbed into the cart. Darren started the engine and the cart hummed to life. The ride back to the farmhouse was quiet except for the wind and Saley's small breaths. Mira kept holding Saley's hand the entire trip. When they reached the farmhouse, Darren helped Lethara down. She wobbled slightly, and Darren automatically reached to support her arm. She stiffened, startled, but did not pull away. Her pride was clearly fighting with her exhaustion. The house was modest, a simple wooden home with metal support beams built by Darren himself. It had warm lights, a working heater, and a quiet porch where Mira often sat to read. Inside, it smelled faintly of old books, machine oil, and fresh bread. When the door opened, warmth washed over all of them. Saley let out a tiny sigh of relief. Lethara blinked slowly, as if she could not believe a place so warm still existed. Mira tugged at her father's sleeve. "Dad, can they stay? Please?" Darren looked at Lethara. Her silver eyes were glossy with fatigue. Her daughter was barely awake, and the cold outside was growing sharper by the minute. He knew the right thing to do before Mira even asked. "They can stay as long as they need," he said softly. Lethara swallowed hard, almost like she was fighting back emotion. We do not wish to cause trouble. Only shelter for the night." "You'll have more than that if you need it," Darren said. He led them to the small guest room, which had an old bed and a heater that still worked. Lethara slowly lowered Saley onto the bed, brushing her daughter's hair gently. When she turned around, she found Darren standing at the doorway. "Thank you," she whispered. "I do not know how to repay." Darren shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." Lethara looked at her sleeping daughter, then back at Darren. Her voice was barely a breath. "You saved us." Darren paused for a moment, thinking about his own daughter, about the quiet sadness she carried every day. Then he said something unexpected, words that even surprised him. "Your daughter needs a home, and mine wants a mother." Lethara froze, stunned by the words. Darren quickly clarified, his voice gentle but honest. I don't mean anything strange. I mean safety. A family. Mira misses having a woman in the house. She misses kindness like yours. You two just walked into our lives tonight, and maybe that's exactly what we needed. Lithara stared at him for a long time, her eyes soft, confused, and full of unspoken fears. She did not fully understand his meaning yet, but she understood one thing. He was offering kindness without asking anything in return. She lowered her head. We'll try not to be a burden. You won't be, Darren said. When he closed the door, Lithara sat beside her daughter, still shocked by the warmth they had been shown. She touched the blanket, the soft pillow, the heater's glow. It had been so long since she felt safe, and somewhere inside her, a small hope began to grow, fragile but real. Morning light touched the edge of Darren's farmhouse gently, like soft fingers brushing across the windows. The sun rose slow on Lyris 4, turning the plains into a warm gold. Inside the house, Mira woke first. She stretched, rubbed her eyes, and then remembered that someone new was sleeping in the guest room. She tiptoed down the hallway, peeking through the half-open door. Sally was curled under the blanket, sleeping peacefully for the first time in who knew how long. Lithara sat beside her, half awake, her posture still protective even in rest. Mira smiled. She did not want to wake them, so she closed the door quietly and ran to the kitchen. Darren was there already, cooking breakfast. He turned when he heard Mira's footsteps. "Good morning, kiddo." "They're still sleeping," Mira whispered excitedly. "Can we make something for them?" Darren followed her tone and whispered back, "Of course." He made extra portions, fruit, warm bread, and a simple broth that he hoped Lithara could eat since she looked weak. Mira arranged plates carefully, trying to make them look nice. Darren watched her and felt something warm inside. He had not seen her this cheerful in a long time. A short time later, Sally woke with a small cough. Lithara opened her eyes instantly, alert as always, and checked her daughter's forehead. It was warm, but not dangerously so. The child needed good food, rest, and medicine. Lithara knew she had none of those things on her own. She stood and helped Sally sit up. When she opened the door, the smell of warm food drifted into the room. The moment it hit Sally's nose, her tired eyes brightened a little. Lithara felt her heart twist. She had not seen her daughter react to food like that in many days. Mira noticed them first. She waved. "Breakfast is ready." Darren looked up from the stove. "Good morning. I hope you slept okay." Lithara hesitated. She was not used to comfort. "We slept very well. Thank you." Sally tugged her mother's hand shyly. Mira rushed over to take her other hand, gently guiding her to the table. Lithara followed slowly, unsure of how to act in a human home. Her people had different customs, different ways of expressing respect. Here, everything felt strange yet warm. Darren pulled out a chair for her. "Please sit, eat. You both need strength." Lithara's pride whispered that she should refuse, but her daughter's hungry eyes silenced that voice. She sat down gracefully, folding her hands on her lap before she picked up the warm bread with careful fingers. Sally, however, did not wait. She took a big bite, cheeks puffing out like a small animal. Lithara's eyes softened. Mira giggled. "She eats like me." Sally hid her face shyly, and both girls laughed. Lithara watched the scene with a strange feeling, relief mixed with fear. It had been so long since her daughter acted like a child instead of a frightened survivor. Darren poured warm broth into a bowl. "You should have some too," he told Lithara. She nodded and tasted it. It was simple but good. Her eyes closed for a moment, overwhelmed by how something so ordinary could feel so comforting. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," Darren said quietly. Lithara opened her eyes and looked at him. "You are kind." Too kind. But we cannot stay forever. We have no papers, no safety. We'll figure something out, Darren replied without hesitation. Lithara was not used to someone speaking with such confidence. She did not trust easily after everything she had experienced. But Darren's voice felt steady, like a person who never broke a promise. After breakfast, Darren showed Lithara where she could wash up. He set out clean towels for her and Sally. Lithara stood there for a long time, staring at the towels like they were something precious. She touched the fabric gently, almost reverently. When she came out, the girls were already outside. Mira held Celi's hand, guiding her through the small garden. They laughed at a small robotic bird that Darren had built years ago. The little machine hopped around their feet, chirping in a digital tone. Lithara watched them from the doorway. Her daughter was smiling, truly smiling. It was more than Lithara had dared to hope for. Darren stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. Mira hasn't played with anyone her age in a long time. Nor has Celi, Lithara said softly. We have been running for many weeks. She forgot how to laugh. Darren turned to her. Then maybe this place is good for both of them. Lithara looked at him with quiet eyes. She still did not understand his kindness. Most humans she had met in the past had been suspicious of her kind. But Darren did not treat her like a threat. He treated her like a person who deserved help. Your home is peaceful, she whispered. We feel safe here, but I do not want to bring danger to you. Darren shrugged lightly. Life already has danger. At least this danger has a chance to become something good. She did not know how to answer that, so she simply nodded, feeling something small but warm settle inside her chest. Later that day, Lithara helped wash dishes. She moved with graceful, practiced motions. Even simple actions looked elegant in her hands. Darren noticed how careful she was, and how she kept watching him with a quiet mixture of worry and gratitude. You don't need to do chores, Darren said gently. I want to, she replied. You gave us a place to rest. I can at least help. Darren smiled. All right then. In the afternoon, he showed her his workshop. Metal tools hung on the walls, small engines lay open on the tables, and the hum of unfinished machines filled the air. Lithara looked around in awe, touching nothing but studying everything. You fix machines? She asked. Mostly. Engines, tools, small bots, sometimes bigger things if the colony calls me. Lithara nodded slowly. My husband. He fixed things too. Before he died. Her voice tightened at the last word. Darren looked at her gently, letting her speak at her own pace. War? He asked softly. She nodded. Yes. We were fleeing after our ship was hit. Many did not survive. Darren lowered his head. I'm sorry. Lithara held her arms close. I did not expect help from humans again, not after what we saw. That made Darren pause. We're not all the same. Some people forget that every species has good and bad. Lithara's eyes slowly softened. You are good. Before Darren could reply, they heard laughter outside. Mira and Celi ran across the yard, chasing the robotic bird. Their small footsteps kicked dust into the air. Sally tripped, but Mira caught her gently. Both girls kept laughing. Lithara watched them with tenderness. Sally has not run like that in months, she whispered. I almost forgot how her steps sound when she is happy. Darren glanced at her. And Mira hasn't smiled that wide since her mother died. Lithara turned her head slightly. I am sorry for your loss. Thank you, Darren replied. Mira misses having someone who understands her. She misses a woman's kindness. I can only do so much. Lithara looked down. She understood loneliness well. Their peaceful moment was interrupted when Darren's neighbor drove by in his hover truck. The man slowed down, eyeing Lithara suspiciously from behind his tinted window. Darren noticed immediately. The neighbor's stare was long, cold, and full of questions. Lathara stepped back instinctively, fear tightening her breath. Darren placed himself slightly between her and the passing truck. The neighbor eventually sped off, leaving dust behind. Lathara whispered, "He saw me." "Don't worry," Darren said. "He's nosy, but he won't do anything. And even if someone asks, I'll handle it." Lathara's voice trembled. "But if the colony finds out we are here?" "They won't touch you," Darren said firmly. "Not while you're under my roof." His certainty stunned her. No one had ever spoken for her with such confidence. That evening, the sky turned orange and purple. The girls sat on the porch, each holding a cup of warm berry drink that Mira loved. Sally tried it for the first time, scrunching her face at the taste before giggling. Darren sat on the steps, tired, but peaceful. Lathara approached slowly and stood beside him. "You protect us," she said quietly. "Even though we bring danger." Darren shook his head. "You bring life back into this house. You bring laughter that Mira needed." Lathara looked at her daughter, who was leaning against Mira like they were already sisters. Her voice softened. "This is the first time I have felt safe since my husband died." Darren looked up at her. "Then stay, not as a guest, as someone who belongs here." Lathara froze, the words hitting her heart harder than she expected. She studied him, unsure what he meant, unsure what she hoped he meant. He did not look away. "You're not alone anymore," Darren said softly. "Neither of you are." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, she lowered her eyes, feeling emotion build in her throat. Inside the house, the lights glowed warm. The air smelled like bread again. Mira and Celie leaned against each other, half asleep. For the first time in a long time, Lathara felt something she had almost forgotten, something she was afraid to trust. Home.